Parsha Mishpatim. I think the element is a kasha at the very popular question, why Mishpatim comes now after Matan Torah. In Parsha Yisro we had Matan Torah. The way you would expect, perhaps it should be followed by Parshas Truma. It talks about the building of Mishkan. We're coming from such a heilig event, Matan Torah. We should go from there into maybe building a Mishkan, the Shechina, just like the Ramban says, that just like the Shechina was by Matan Torah, it's in the Mikdash. That would be a hemshech of Matan Torah, but the Torah comes all of a sudden with the Parsha Mishpatim, all the different financial halachas. Why does that come immediately following Matan Torah? So we just had a thought that we know that in the entire Torah, there's a difference between shaygig and mazid. Any avera that a person does, there's a different einish if he does it b'mazid or he does it b'shaygig. Sometimes there's mazid schiev misa, sometimes mazid is malchus and so on, and b'shaygig is being a carbon and so on. It's a chilik. But by dinim mominis, the pasuk that says in Morim Babakam Chavav Mid Beis says on the pasuk of Petza Tachas Potza, which is this week's parsha, we learn from this pasuk l'chayvai al hashagig k'mezid al ha'onis karotzen. That when it comes to dinim mominis, someone, let's say he's driving and he knocks into another car, and he said that I didn't mean to do it. It was a mistake. It doesn't make any difference. You mazik somebody, you have to pay. I don't know all the halachas leinis karatzen. It says you're not chayav an earnest like ratzon. Let's say someone says it was an accident. I don't know, but I think sometimes you could be put on accident. I'm not really sure, but yeah. But here it says the word says shaygi kemeiz earnest karatzen, but you always chayav. So but dinim mominis, there's sort of no excuses. So there's a certain lesson we can learn from dinim mominis about the achrayus we have. How responsible we are for our actions. And that might be a reason that before we get to anything else in the Torah, right after Matan Torah, we should learn the idea of achrayus, that we're responsible for what we do. Even though somehow the Torah is makel when it comes to certain punishments, it's not as severe, certain punishments. We don't, like we mentioned before, no chiyuv misa b'shaygig, but deep down, a person is responsible even for his mistakes, even b'shaygig. If you would have been more careful, it wouldn't happen. Otherwise, why you punish a person b'chlal for shaygig? Maybe you shouldn't have to bring a carbon. So you see, it is not avera. It's not as chomer. But when it comes to dinim mominis, there's no chilukim. So that's where it hits home strongest, that the person is responsible for everything he does. No excuses, as we said. We find not only a person is responsible for his own actions in this parsha, he's responsible for his ox. There's a mushal, he's a shara muid. Sometimes you have to pay the whole amount. Okay, half the amount. You have animals. You're responsible for your animals, not only for your own actions. You make sure that your animals don't hurt anybody, or you're going to pay for it. You could be responsible for other people's moments. Someone entrusts you. You're a shomer. You took on responsibility. You said you're going to watch a person's animal. Then you're going to have to pay. If it's mazik, or if something happens to it, you're going to have to pay the owner. You're responsible for people's properties, we'll see. I once saw from Mordechai Miller from Gateshead, he says that this is really from the very first Sukkim in Mishpatim, Indian of Eved, that sometimes a person, let's say, stole money, and he spent the money, and they catch up with him, and they say, you robbed this guy, you got to pay him back. So he says, okay, but I already spent the money. So he said, well, we'll sell your property. I don't know any properties. That's why I went stealing. Get every excuse in the world. So we said, we got an idea for you. We'll sell you as an Evid. We'll make some money. He'll sell you. So you see how far it goes. A person can be sold to be a slave, even though Evid Ivri is not as bad as Evid Kanani, whatever, not going into all the dinim of Vadim. But just the idea that Bezin takes him, you don't have what you can't pay, you're going to pay, even if we have to sell you. So we see a lot of things here in this parsha, how far it goes, the responsibility of a person. That excuses don't really add up when it comes to mominus. There's a pasuk in this week's parsha It says, "Ki'itin ishal re'eo kesav v'kelim lishmar." If a person gives his friend either money or some vessels to watch, to keep an eye on, v'gunav beisa ish, and then it was stolen, yimatzeh ganav shalom shnayim. The ganav has to pay double. There's a sfas emes that says a nice thought in this parsha, like I guess called derech remez, perhaps. He says it's referring to ki'itin ishal re'eo. It's referring to HaKadosh Baruch Hu giving each person. HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives each person kesef ha'kelim lishmar. Kesef, he wants to say, taich, is lashon kisufim. A person has a ritzonis. A person has a cheshik for something. It's lashon kisufim. Hashem gives a person a certain cheshik. We have desires for things, ambitions for things. So Hashem gives us that feeling. Or kelim, Hashem gives us kelim. He gives us our abilities, mental abilities, physical abilities. So Hashem gives a person kesef ha'kelim lishmar, but He gives it to him to be shomer on them, to be careful how he uses them. But v'guna beisa ish, but it can get stolen from Hashem. In other words, that Hashem gave him this, but it could be stolen from the person. I'm not sure he touched the ish, the person he has it, but the person is not careful, it could be stolen from him. This thing. So he must say gani v'shalom shnayim. Then he has a cheshbon he has to give. But anyways, the kids, then the main code of this remez is that Hashem gives us. We're trying to learn here from the Dinei Mamonis how it translates into responsibility of a person in Ruchnius as well. So I'm saying how you could make a limud from the Dinei Mamonis. So Hashem says b'derech remez that Hashem gives us responsibilities. He gives us things to watch, to be careful, to be a shomer on our kisufim, on our desires, and on our kelim that we have, that Hashem gives us. I saw also from Chaim Shmulevitz, he says in this week's parsha, it says that if an Eved says, Ahavti Asadoni is Ishti, after the 6 years, he doesn't want to go free, he's very comfortable, he's happy being a slave by this person, so he's allowed to stay longer, but we drill a hole through his ear, the earlobe, because Oizen Sheshama al Har Sinai, we heard on Har Sinai that we're supposed to be Avodim to Hashem, and we decide to be Avodim to a human being, to continue being Avodim. So he says that you see from here the ear is responsible. A person's ear, he heard something on Har Sinai, and he didn't listen properly, didn't get the message of Har Sinai, so we drill a hole in his ear. His ear is responsible. If he heard something, he didn't listen, he didn't understand, he didn't take the lesson that was intended. He brings also, I think Das Kanim, it says that in Eved Knani goes free b'shein va'ayin. If, let's say, the master, however it happens, he knocked out the slave's eye or his tooth, the Eved goes free. It's free. So he says, Das Kanim says, why is that? What's the Aimik in this Indian? So he says, because why did they become Avodim? Why was Knan punished, cursed to be Avodim? Because he looked at Cham, the father of this nation, looked at Noach when he wasn't supposed to, and he spoke about it. So the reason they were responsible because of what they did, their actions brought them to be cursed, to be slaves. But if you knock out the eye or the tooth, that's misakin, it's a tikkun of what the aver was, and that's why they can go free. But the whole slavery was because of what they did wrong. There's the person who is responsible, this Indian. And about this Indian Nirtzatakim, about an Eved, it's, when you learn the parsha, it seems strange to us, this Nirtza, that he wants to remain an Eved. It sounds like every person would like to be free. No one wants to even imagine the idea of being an Eved. And this person wants to stay on. But there's a little limit also in the Indian of Golis. Let's say we're in Golis, and not supposed to be here. We're supposed to hope to get out of Golis. But sometimes we're in a situation where Hafti as Adainis Ishti as Banai, like we're pretty comfortable in the Golis if we have what we need, and if no one bothers us, Baruch Hashem, we hope continues. So we also in a little way could become like an Eved, that we become satisfied with the Golis. If we're in a pleasant Golis, just like this Eved found himself in a pleasant surrounding. So it's still a little Indian here to learn from this, perhaps, that we shouldn't become too comfortable in our Golis either. we should have a list of ratzon somewhat to get out of it. We saw in the pasuk. It says, "Kisir chamor sanacha." There's a pasuk here that if you see the chamor of your enemy, roivitz tachas masoi, is collapsing under the weight that he's carrying, v'chadalta me'azav lo, you shouldn't refrain from helping. Azav tazav ima, you should help him, even if it's your enemy. So there's a nice Targum Unkelis here that he says in Lashon Azav tazav, with Pasha Taichet means help, but he says he wants to Taichet to leave something, to leave behind. So he says, you don't want to help me. He says, no, mishbak, tishbak, ma debelibach alahi. Means forget your animosity. That's what he Taichet the pasuk. You see his chamor is suffering and you don't want to help him. So he says, Azar tazav, try to forget about your animosity and try to mizgaber and to help him. So limud. Another Indian about the parsha I've spoken about in the past. This is when it comes over that give a mashal that we know that by the Gemara says by Hillel, when the Gary asked Hillel to teach him the whole Torah while he's standing on one foot. So Hillel found 3 words that encompass the whole Torah. He says, "V'haftu kamoicha." That's the soy kol terakula. Everything else is a pirish. But in this week's parsha, I think there's another 3 words that maybe encompass the whole Torah and our whole derech hachayim. It says midvar sheker tirchak. 3 words, midvar sheker, stay away from sheker. So I've heard pointed out that by other inyanim in the Torah, there's certain dinim that are deraisa, and then the Rabbanim make harchakas. The Rabbanim tell us don't just keep to the din, you should stay further away. That's the Rabbanim make zeres to keep us away from the aveira. But here, by sheker, the Torah itself says to be merachik. Sheker tirchak. Don't just say sheker, but stay away. Make harchakas. Stay away, as far away from inyanam sheker. Gemara says in Saita that there's 4 groups of people that will not be zeicha to see the Shechina when they go to the next world. And one is the Kat Shakranim, the group of people that, especially if people make it a habit to lie and so on. What you see in Ben Yoines goes through all these Adal Kitos, with all the Pratim, all these groups. But one of the groups is the Kat Shakranim. There's a group of people that are Shakranim. They lie. And that group will not be zeicha to see the Pnei Shechina. It says. There's Gemara's and Sanhedrin, the people learned Daf Yomi. I think they're almost up to date. It says, Kol machlif b'devurei, someone who is not careful with his words. It's Kiloi v'avodah zara. It's very, very strong, the shyness about sheker. We know that the Gemara says that once there was like a piece of paper, whatever it was, a note fell from Shemayim, and it had the word emes on it. And the Gemara says that from that Ma'aseh, the Gemara says, "Chaysom mishal Kadosh Baruch Hu emes." When the Kadosh Baruch Hu, what?
Today is now tomorrow's.
Yeah, right. And so Sanhedrin also. Then okay. So that the Gemara says that the Gemara learned out from that Ma'aseh that happened that when Hashem wants to sign His name to something, He signs with the word emes. That's Chaysom. That's His seal. Chaysom mishal Kadosh Baruch Hu emes. So what's Pashut Pshat in that? When the Kadosh Baruch Hu, He signs His name with the word emes. What does that mean? That's not one of His names, really. I mean, He signs with the word emes. So Pashut Pshat, I think it's Pashut Pshat. What does the signature mean? When a person signs his name, that means if you want to know who wrote this or who obligated himself to this contract or whoever it might be, you could find him. This is him. This is his signature, and you could find him. You could look him up, and he's responsible for what it says here. This is his signature. He put his name to this. He signed this. This is him. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu signs emes. That means a lesson that if you want to find HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look for the emes. If you look for the emes, you'll find him. That's someone who's not careful with emes. He lies. He's headed for avodah zarah. He can end up anywhere. But someone that's a mavakish emes, and he's looking for the truth. He tries to spend time think what is the right thing to do. What is the emes in the Welt what is this really? Start from scratch. People stop to think, what is this all about? This world, and what's the tachlis, and how did it happen? How did we get up here? So he'll find the Eibishter, like we had recently. Yisrael example. Yisrael was mavakish to emes, a real mavakish. Mamish tried his hardest to look here, look there. He went around tried everything to find what's the emes, and he came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the mavakish emes. Okay, so much HaKadosh Baruch Hu emes that if you look for the emes, we know many Bali Tshuva are like that. People that they were searching to find the truth, and then they came to do tshuva. So it's very important. Rabbi Yonah says when he speaks about Dalakitos, he says it's emes is from the Yesodei Nefesh. It's a very fundamental thing in a person's nefesh, a crucial thing, the meat of emes. So this is all part of it. If a person practices being truthful, not lying, so this will all help him find the Kadosh Baruch Hu. He's on the right track. He's on the truth. He's on the track of emes. It's important to him emes, and this way he'll find the Kadosh Baruch Hu. And when the Gemara says in Shabbos that even the letters of the word emes, Aleph, Mem, Sof, all have two legs, whereas the word sheker all have just one leg. The shin is on a point in the Sefer Torah, and the kuf and the reish have one leg, because kush koi, something that's emes will last, will be truthful, and we know that that's how it is. That people do things that are sheker, it doesn't have any lasting somewhere along the line. It collapses and if it backfires, it's not the real. It doesn't have a kiyum. Emes is all these things are on the same line. That's what the Kadosh Baruch Hu is. That's what's the emes is. What's real. That's what's real. There's a Maisa in when it's talking about mentioned Sfas Emes before. Sfas Emes was a young boy. His grandfather was the Chdish Rim. Sfas Emes lost his father when he was young, and he was a boy by his Zayda, by the Chdish Rim. So the Chdish Rim was in the winter time once. He was traveling to the Kotzker Rebbe. He was planning a trip to the Kotzker Rebbe. There's a book about Kotzker, popular book, came out recently. Today's actually the Kotzker Rebbe's yard site. So he was going to travel to the Kotzker Rebbe. So he wanted to take along his grandson Sfas Emes, who was a young boy. So the Rebbetzin said to him that it's a difficult trip now. It's in the winter. It was hard traveling. But the Chadish Rim insisted that he said it's kedai to make the trip to see, I think, a Vori, exactly the Lashon used, to see an Erlich Yid. It's kedai for him to come along to see the trip. So anyway, the Sfas Emes told a little later that on this trip, there was happened a Maisa by the Rebbe, by the Kotzker Rebbe, when it's time to make Kiddush or some point, and they couldn't find his Becher to make Kiddush. So they looked, and then the Gabbai came to the Rebbe. He said, it looks like that someone stole the Becher. So the Becher is the cup. Sorry, the Becher is kais. Someone stole it. So when he was told that someone stole it, the Kotzker Rebbe screamed, "I'm going to make that." They said, "Got it? He stole it." He said, "Says like Signaiv." I tell you, like he was so shocked that a person could steal. How could it can't even be asked. It says like Signaiv. The Sfas Emes said that this went into his bones, his whole life. That it was like the Chdish Rim was doing. He brought him to Shabbos to Kotsk, just to hear this. How the Kotzker Rebbe couldn't even grasp that if someone could steal, if it says in the Torah, like Signai, he couldn't even grasp it. So as you see, I mentioned also in my time when I was a Bach in Lakewood, I've said we've heard already a lot of times these stories, but when I was a Bach in Lakewood, so then there was no cell phones and all these kind of things yet. There were pay phones. So downstairs in the lobby, there were a few pay phones. So one phone broke. What do you mean it broke? You could use it without paying. And it seems that, I don't know, some people used it and they called Eretz Yisrael, which at that time was very expensive to call. And somehow the Yeshiva, they heard about this. The Shnei HaKotla heard that some Bachrim used his phone without paying. So he was terribly upset. and he called a special sif in the Beis Medrash, which was unusual, and he spoke about this Indian, how this could happen. And the line I remember is that he said, if somebody, while he's in yeshiva, could do such a thing, couldn't grasp it, he could do such a thing, to use a phone without paying. He said, what's going to be with that person when he gets out into the world and he has nisyonis to support a family or something like that? He said, while he's in yeshiva, he could do such a thing. I remember that, like sort of like the Kutzke, he could not grasp it, how a boch in yeshiva could use a phone without paying. So that made a Russian, to hear that how upset he was. I also heard when I was in Australia, the son of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, one of the sons of Menachem Kamenetsky, was visiting once, and he spoke in Hayi Koilo. So he also told a little story about Rabbi Yaakov. His father, Rabbi Yaakov was famous for meat of emes. Even the Sfarim have it called emes liyaakov. They called it. So he told a story that when they were young children, Rabbi Yaakov went to visit his father-in-law, their grandfather. They went to visit, and the kids were, at one point, the kids were jumping on the table, on his dining room, whatever it was, table. So the father-in-law said to Yaakov, this is how you teach your children? To jump on tables, So Yaakov said back to Shver, I guess in a nice way, he said that my derech and chinuch, he says, is that things that I'm afraid they may do wrong when they're older, I try to teach them when they're younger not to do it, he said. But jumping on tables, I'm not afraid that when they grow up, they're going to jump on tables. So that's why I don't make a point of this. But he said, if they say a sheker, that I'm very careful about, he said. But then I'm afraid could develop into, he put the dagish in the chinuch, he taught the chinuch of emes. I think Chaim Kanievsky, brings this Maisa. Later I saw that the Maharsha brings it. It's different nischayos who this Maisa was by. But the way Chaim brings this Maisa, there was a person who was taka gan of terrible all these shekin gan had terrible midas in these inyanim, but he wanted to change. He wanted to become Baal Tshuva, to start doing things right. So he went to different schools who it was that he went to. There's even one of the schools, one of the Tanoim, I think. This Maisa happened. So he told him, I have an easy solution for you. I just want you to be makabel one thing. He said, what is that? He says, never tell a lie. That's the only thing I'm asking you, never tell a lie. He said, that's it, that'll help me. He said, tell me, I think maybe swear that you'll never tell a lie. So okay, that'll be makabel. He walked out. He thought he had an easy solution. So he lived in a house, and he had a neighbor, and he noticed his neighbor packed up the bags. I think it was a lady lived there, packed up her bag. She's going away on some vacation. So he was tempted to rob the house, which he did. The mice was he broke into the house, and he packed up all the things that he wanted, and he left the house with all the things. Because that wasn't on his tshuva list, not to steal. So he took everything like he always did when he had an opportunity. But then after he robbed the house, he said, what's going to happen when the neighbor comes home? I'm going to ask him if he knows anything about what happened here, maybe notice something. So he said, I'll have to lie that I don't know anything or whatever say. So he said, Dad, I swore I'm not going to do that. So he brought everything back. That stopped him from the gneva. He put everything back in the house. And he said he sees the chachma of the eitz that was given. If you just keep the meat of emes, it'll keep you away from all kinds of trouble. That was the ma'isa that he had. There's another thing. Reb Chaim, I think there's another ma'isa that he met a yid I think it was the Sephardish yid, that he noticed this person wouldn't tell a lie even if you give him $1 million. So he asked this person, where did you get this from? So he said, from my father. He said, because my father, when we were kids, also in the chinuch, my father, sometimes a kid makes trouble, breaks something. So my father would tell us, he said, I'm going to ask each one of you if you did it or not. If you tell me the truth, I'll even give you a matbeh, I think he said. I'll give you a little, if you admit that you did it, you'll get it instead of a punishment, you'll get a matbeh. But if you lied to me, you're going to get it. Those days they used to give it, If you lied to me and I find out that it was really you, you're in for it. So he said we learned the hard way that you got to tell the truth. He said, and he said this is in his bones. That's the chinuch that he got, the importance of emes, that not to lie. That's what he had. And this Maisa in the Sefer Chazon Ish on Muna B'Tachim, he talks in one place about sheichad. I think it's maybe this parsha also, that you shouldn't give a bribe to a dayan. A dayan shouldn't be makabel, a sheichad. To the sheichad yavei chachamim, it's going to make a chacham blind. He won't be able to see things right. So the Chazon Ish says, how could that happen? How could it happen that if you give a chacham a gift, he won't judge right? He said he can't understand how that's possible. Even if so, he says it's a chayk. He says this is a chayk. It's not. There's no shot in this. He says a chacham would not change his from the emes even if you give him who knows what. He said his only understanding of shaykhid, it says there's no understanding. That's what the Chazon Ish writes. It's a chayk. So you see the Chazon Ish who he was that he couldn't understand shaykhid. That's pretty. That's what he writes. So I think most people would be the easiest thing to understand shaykhid. But Chazon Ish couldn't understand it. That's what he writes. It's a chayk bli tam. So that's you see, but tzaddikim. This was the midah, how stark it was by these mentioned some of these ma'asim here, and that's a soid nefesh. Then some midvash sheket tirchak. It's only 3 words in the Torah, but it's a very big soid in a person's life. If a person takes on the midah of emes, that he not to lie, not to that helps a person in all inyanim, Hanos inyanim and other inyanim. The person won't be nichshel. Which after the Shmaya will be, yes, he says the truth. He's not going to lie. All right, so this is some inyanim from this parsha, that the Torah was magdim this parsha to all other inyanim. That before we get to Beis Hamikdash, Mishkan, and the Kabbanis, and all the big things, all the mitzvahs that he could do. But the first thing is real basic, that we're responsible for what we do. We have to think before whatever we do, we're responsible for, and we have to be emistic. Then we can proceed to the rest of the Torah. We have these inyanim that we can learn from the inyanim of Mominis, could teach us Yesivas for all of us Hashem as Hashem.
Last time I said because my money shouldn't go to this.
About your money, yeah, that's by that is one for Christmas, yeah, never say, yeah, never say, yeah.
Well, that's the safe part. That was right.
So, is what I meant.